Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here in the chat, and welcome Kelly, Godless Granny, from her channel, Godless Granny, which I'm sure most of you in the chat know. And if you don't, well, welcome, Kelly.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me, Claire. It's
Oh,
wonderful to be here.
I am so happy to have you here. I've been on your channel and I've been remiss, I must say, in not getting you here soon enough. But Library Chats is definitely the place for someone who is as articulate as you are in discussing these issues and always making it a pleasant time, like not painful at all. Like some people talking about religion, politics, all of the issues that come up. But I've always enjoyed the content on your channel, so I'm happy to have you here.
Well,
Today,
thank you. Thank you
oh,
very
go.
much. And also I appreciate the aesthetic here because I love a good warm crackling fire, but it is way too hot to sit in front of a fire. But
I
hey, there's
know.
no heat from this fire. It's cool.
It's not. It's like just think of it as like just the visual. At least it's really not burning our bums in the back, people. It's not. It's. But when I think library chats, I think cognac and big leather chairs and sitting around and having conversations. And as one of the other accounts that helps me work on some of my intros and outros and a lot of the back end stuff on my channel. They just ran with it and they did a great job. They created every single square of these in a program called Blender. They had to create it all from scratch, and I was like so
Mm,
pleased. Um,
interesting.
yeah, it is. But I'm glad you appreciate it because they'll be pleased. They'll be very pleased. You know.
It's also unusual for me to be appearing by avatar. I usually appear live on camera.
You
And
do.
so one thing that's kind of funny is as you're talking, I'm nodding and realizing nobody sees that I'm nodding and agreeing with you.
I think that's why I have the bad habit of saying and a lot, so that people know I'm nodding. I think I've developed that because I never do anything but Avatar.
Mm.
I called the whole series Avatars Live, and then I changed it over to Claire View. But yeah, I'm like the opposite. Like I just don't. I just never got. Just not brave enough yet. I think I'll get there. I don't know yet. I go back and forth. For now, it's more about the conversations and the words, and so I didn't want to have to worry about all the other stuff. It looks so complicated, although you'd make it look easy. But for me, it's very complicated. It really is. So welcome, Aaron and Kim. And to anyone else who has popped in that I didn't get to say hi to before. But so today's topic, if anybody didn't see the description, it I think you're all aware that both Granny and I are in some type of atheism belief. Um, but the topic today is about a religion in America. And the statistics I've been seeing in the articles, and Kelly and I both saw an article on Twitter. I think it came up at the same. Either she tweeted it or I tweeted it, but it just seemed interesting about how things are changing, and I thought it would make a good conversation. So it's not really on whether there's belief or not from what I read, Kelly. It's more about how they're starting to
Hmm.
express their belief or support their belief.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
And before we get into the topic, I'm going to hijack your channel for just a minute. Um,
absolutely. Go ahead.
I offered on Twitter a little contest to one of your viewers, and I don't know which one it's going to end up being, and that is to name my next video. I just finished a video, and I cannot figure out what to name it. Usually, it comes to me at some point, and this one, it just didn't. I can't come up with a decent name for it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the video is a response to a Catholic priest who is talking about how God created souls in people and how that squares with evolution. Um, some of the more egregious things that he says in there is he says that humans are not hominoid animals. So I'm going,
Oh.
okay, if we are not
Mm.
hominoid animals, what are we? um, and he also says that there is a clear distinction between humans and the rest of the animal kingdom. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I do plan to use his statement that we are not hominoid animals as the thumbnail. His major premise though is with regards to souls and where souls come from. So I
Mm-hmm.
was considering the title "Where Souls Come From," but I'm wondering if there's anyone in the chat who has a better idea. And you can take the entire video or the
Mm-hmm.
stream to think about it. But if anyone has a
Mm-hmm.
better idea for what to call that video, please give me a suggestion. I'm open to
Yeah.
suggestions on that one.
I think the topic is lit. I can't wait to hear this. I can't wait for this stream. That is a big topic about souls in evolution. And gosh, he really said that he's really trying to separate us from the whole evolution Darwinism thing. Like,
Well,
really?
he argues that evolution happened, it was real, but when he tries to explain it, his pictograph makes evolution look linear. And it appears that his understanding of evolution is also linear. And he says, okay, at this point, God intervened and did a special creation. But he doesn't seem to understand that evolution isn't linear. It's something that happens within a population, and that's his
Oh,
real problem.
oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. That he's gonna get messed up there for sure. Oh well,
Hmm.
that I can't. Oh, well, hopefully, some of our creative ones in the chat can come up with a good title for her for that, and that would be
Yep.
great. Yes, I feel that's nice. And gives them something to chew on a little bit while we talk. But that's a good lead into that, because when you said that he actually accepts Darwinism to some extent, some creation, uh, he's molding it to his own, and I think that's what's going on in America with religion also, because of the way we live. They can't keep denying all
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
facts. Okay, science. What's right in front of us. They can't keep denying it, and now to try to remold things to better fit, but they may be lacking. When we say when First, let me just explain. When I use the term organized religion, I'm talking about formal church or formal organizations, large organizations, and the belief of just like one way, where you have all the different types: Lutheran, Methodist, Baptist, even all the sub degrees. Um, fundamentalists, Mormons, Quakers, the Orthodox Jewish religion, even things in the other more larger religions, like those that believe in Muhammad, and all of the the different parts of those, Catholic for one. But here in America, mostly I'll be addressing those that just say they believe in God and practice it in a organized way, in
Mhm.
a formal way, in a structured way, with a church, like a church or a place to go with a whole bunch of other people. This is not necessary. I don't know the other terms for church that they're using now. I just drew a blank. Well, because not all, they don't all call them a church. So,
I see a suggestion in the chat that I think looks good. Souls climbing Aristotle's ladder.
Ring, that sounds really good. That's a good one. That does sound really
I
good.
like that. Okay. I had not heard of Aristotle's ladder, but it makes complete sense
Uh-huh.
because a good portion of the support that the priest uses for his claims are
Mm-hmm.
from the Theologica, which
Mm-hmm.
is based on Aquinas addressing Aristotle.
Ah.
Um, so yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
probably is, and I should recognize that there was someone else that mentioned Aristotle's ladder as well. It
Mm-hmm.
was let's see, who was it? It was it
And there's right under it, there's one from Charlie that says
Devolution
de-evolution.
back to all
Back.
fours. Yeah, I saw
I
that
love
one.
that, Charlie. That one's good
I
too.
like that
Woo.
title, but the only problem is I don't think it really fits because he does talk about it going the other direction. So I
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Another one was, did God evolve souls?
Hmm.
Yeah, keep thinking, guys. This is great. Like, keep them coming. Keep them coming. Yes, Grace, a temple or a mosque or some kind of formal. Thank you for helping me with that. Mosque was what I was thinking, and it just wouldn't come off my tongue. I appreciate that. Oh.
One of the things that I have seen in some of the surveys is that a lot of people are no longer accepting religion, but they still believe in some form of God. And I think
Mm-hmm.
there is a big switch from formal religion to more of a spiritualism,
Mm-hmm.
that people are feeling that their spirit is in connection with
Mm-hmm.
some form of, they would call it God. I would say some kind of, spirit that's outside of, excuse me, I'm burping here,
Mm-hmm.
some sort of spirit outside of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is, might be what the younger generation is turning more to.
Yeah, that is basically what all of the statistics are saying also. I was just looking at articles all the way back from 2019 forward, most of them from 2021 and then to just this spring. Nothing really current. But what they are saying is that definitely 70% of Americans believe in in have a belief in a god or some type
Hmm.
of god, and I have to, like, I try to be careful about how they say, just say a deity, somebody, higher than ourselves, outside of the human experience. And yet there is only now 47%, I think, was the average from the articles, for no 57, no
It depends on
57%.
which article you read.
Right.
Yeah, there's different
And
numbers
I
in different
tried to
articles.
average it, and I'm looking at my notes, and my average from all the articles, some said 37, some said as high as 67 and everything. I think I got to around 56% of those that believe in a higher being are practicing formalized religion, like actually
Hmm.
attending church,
Hmm.
and especially attending church in the way that their parents did. That was another one. They
Hmm.
are moving away from generational religion, um and by that I mean, when your grandmother practiced, going from grandparents to parents to the children. In many cases, when I was younger, it was just not thought of to go outside of your religion to any other religion or to any other belief. It was cultural, it was in your home, it was in your community, your neighborhood, and that's where it was. That's it. We didn't think of it outside. But it seems like the younger generations, X and Z, especially Z now, are like just thinking more worldwide, more different, and saying that they can't look to what they're doing because it's not what they see in the world that they live in today, just their day to day life, you know.
I think a big part of it is the change in youth groups and churches. And here's why I
Mm-hmm.
say that.
Mm-hmm.
When I lived in Indiana, my kids attended youth group for teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And, parents were certainly allowed to be involved in the youth group, and they obviously needed parent volunteers for a number of things. But to me, one of the main things about youth group was that your parents were not there for the most part. And you were
Mm-hmm.
there to have Bible study, to go on retreats, to go do fun things with other believers and with a youth leader who would help you then form your own theology. And I think the youth group is the most essential part of the church
Mm-hmm.
because that is where the young people make their religion their own. It that's where it evolves from being your
Mm-hmm.
parents' religion to being your own beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved to the South, when I came to Alabama and to the Bible Belt, we went to church after church after church
Mm-hmm.
after church looking for one that had an active youth group, and it was extremely difficult to find.
Wow.
Robin was 12 at the time. It was at that exact age where I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking Robin needs to start internalizing faith and start exploring what he believes, not what I believe. And I was just amazed at the number of churches that said, "Oh, well, we don't really do youth group. We just have Sunday school for the youth, the same as everybody else." And
Mm-hmm.
that isn't going to cut it. The
It's
youth
not.
need,
Yeah.
yeah,
They
they
need to see
need their
it.
own social group. They need
Mm-hmm.
they need a place where they can bond and belong, and just going
Mm-hmm.
to Sunday school doesn't cut it.
No, it doesn't, because here you got a growing mind that is challenging and wants to actually explore some of the teachings that are being presented, and they need to be expanded and talked upon in a more open format. I remember youth group as being a little freer, and it usually had a much more members of the church who were much younger and more energized than I was seeing
Mhm,
actually in church practice, which could be. I'm Catholic, so it was quite stoic. Okay, we don't ask questions. We just did, while you're there. But when you got into the groups, okay, you could ask questions and everything, and in some situations you would get good conversations going and good.
mhm,
They would try to relate the teachings that they were trying to put forward to everyday life that I was experiencing right now. And to
mhm,
me, that's what youth group was about, trying to relate it to what I was going through at the time and make it more relevant to me in this generation, in this world that we're living in, not like 100 years ago or something, but now, like actually applying it to the now, helping us understand situations, giving us answers to just the even questions like, I'm uncomfortable going to my friend's house. They won't let me pray when I eat, or something
mhm,
like that. I mean, I
mhm,
remember many friends having questions like that and asking them, and just dealing with day-to-day situations like that. And if they don't have that vehicle, um, you're left out on your own a little bit at that age. And it's like you said, a great. It's a time where we're exploring and growing and making decisions on religion. Actually, we're
mhm,
gathering the information.
mhm. There's a couple
Valid.
of comments in the chat that I really wanna address.
Yeah.
One is purples, which I find really interesting.
Which one?
Purple
The I remember.
purple
Yeah.
yeah, I remember church youth group when I was a teenager. On an overnight retreat, I had a hot makeout session in the choir loft.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess that happens. It
It does
does. Yeah.
happen, and,
Uh-huh.
way back when I was working with teenagers,
Mhm.
this was back in the '80s before I had kids,
Mhm.
and, I was a young adult, and I invited several of the youth to my house for a sleepover, and a bunch of them went outside and were smoking cigarettes.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't know what to do with that,
Mhm.
It just floored me that these teenagers were out smoking
Yeah.
cigarettes.
They were like right out there, right. And
Mhm.
like Ring says that he was involved with his church group from 13 up until he left for the army. Needless to say, it didn't stick. I'm
Yep.
wondering if actually they were monitoring it and seeing that everybody, because the world was changing so fast, that they weren't making a difference to these I mean, as is you just said with the smoking and purple with the making out session in the choir loft, it appears that youth group was more just a gathering of teenagers at some point, which, if not controlled in a way or giving them things to actively be doing all the time, can get dicey.
Hmm. Which
Hormones and
takes
stuff.
us to Aaron Reese's comment.
I'm going right there. You're right
Yep.
with me. Uh, Unsupervised thought is bad for indoctrination practices.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I think that might be what started the de-evolution, of having them there. Like the demise of the youth group could be in participation, or that it just, went off the rails a little bit based on how things are these days in everyday American life. I know. Oh,
Autistic Shill has a title for me, which I think is really good as well.
this one, indoctrination.
Indoctrination of evolutionary souls. I would modify that a little because he's very clear that the body evolves, but not the soul. So I would have to modify it a bit, but I do
Mhm.
like that.
Mm, these are good. You're getting some good ones. I'm happy.
Hmm.
This is good. This is working out really well. Yeah, ring 42. One ring 42 says depends on how the youth group is structured. Youth
Hmm.
group retreats gave me a steady supply of that Jesus fix. Yeah, because like we're praying, we're accepted with a bunch,
Right.
with a whole group of people that agree the same as us. So we can have our prayer, we can, pepper it into everything, and like almost all of the activities are uh, related to somehow reinforcing some part of the doctrine, right? At least that was my experience, especially even going camping or any of the outings that we had or anything like that. We had like jubilees and sing-alongs, and
Hmm. Hmm.
they tried to make it fun. I mean, they really were trying to relate to you in a
Hmm.
way. But
Hmm.
yeah. But I think you're right. I think that could be contributing to it. It leads to the larger point that it's just a lot of the doctrine is not being put out there in a manner that you can actually wrap day to day American life around. They mostly around what I found to be three really hot issues in all the religions and in everyday American life. We can't ignore the issues of LGBTQ rights, the issue of abortion, and for the churches, just how women are accepted or not accepted in levels, and how far they can go actually in the church and in their teachings, and whether they can be priests, pastors, and all of that, and accepted as equals. Here in America, you can find a church that believes just about anything you want to. You can find a church that is down with misogyny. You can
Hmm.
find a church that is like, okay with multiple wives, or
Hmm. Hmm.
you you can even find churches that are okay against other churches' beliefs, that are okay about divorce or okay about never getting married, okay with all of it, and even some, even with their belief in God, that believe in a woman's right to choose, and that will not, weigh in on too much pressure on their participants as far as the sin level of it or the evilness of something like that. They don't want to label it so harshly. You can
Um,
find a church for anything. So I don't know why church is decreasing. you know.
um, I'll get to that in just a minute, but yeah, my apologies, Ring. Evidently, Ring is non-binary and prefers they them pronouns. So
Okay,
I'll try
sorry.
to I'll try to remember that, but
Mhm.
I have a hard
I
time remembering pronouns.
Yeah, but I appreciate you mentioning it, because until someone tells me,
Right.
I don't know. So thank you for saying it. I'll do my best to say they from the same as Kelly from now on. And thank you for telling us. Um, okay,
But
these are.
anyway, getting back to yeah, I think the pandemic obviously had a lot to do with
Mhm,
it. You know, watching what has happened within some of my own family members that used to go to church every Sunday. And when the
mhm,
pandemic came, they went to attending church only virtually. And now that most churches have gone back to in person, a number of my family members have not gone back to in person, and
Mhm.
it's just convenient. You don't have to get dressed. All you do is turn on your computer and watch a church service, and there, I did
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
But I think that once you reach that point, it's very easy to turn it off entirely because really, I can't imagine that there is an all powerful being that really cares if I watch something on TV or not.
Mhm. Mhm. Or if you gave your $10 in the plate, or which face, or how much it was. Yeah, that was an issue for me also. Like, I doubt they're paying that kind of attention to it. Oh,
Oh, I love
yeah.
Aaron Reese's title.
I was just looking at that. I was gonna pop it up for you because it's becoming very popular here. Jin had one too. I was like, Soul Survivor, Evolution and Spirit.
I
That kind
love
of
that. That's
that.
the winner. We have
Yeah.
a winner.
Well, let me just put one more up. I saw this one
Okay.
from Jin. The concrete soul of an evolving body.
I saw that one too, but I like this one better.
I don't know, Aaron. I just have to let you in on a little secret. Aaron wins everything.
Ah.
I'm not surprised that you like that. I'm not dissing anybody else's. I'm just not surprised that Aaron pulled it out. And was it at least in the top two or three because he often does. Very clever with the words.
Mhm.
I really admire him for that. But good job, Aaron. You may just be famous on a video there with the title. It is. They're all supporting him too. It was great. Mhm. Yeah. Purple is saying that has happened a lot. Church attendance across the country has not recovered since the pandemic. Exactly, because your habit. Once you find that you weren't getting from it what you thought you were. It's not like
Mhm.
if you can believe without it, why do you need it?
Mhm.
Also, financially, the burden of participating as much, and whether they mean to or not. Like, I don't want to get into the whole the pressure thing that they put on you for your tithes or your contributions. It can be, once the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people had to go into other avenues of work, tighten their belts, do things like that. And maybe there's just a little bit less guilt if you're not actually attending the church, that you're not contributing as much as you used to. I don't know. There could be a lot of factors to it,
Mhm.
but I think
Mhm.
I think the freedom of time and rigidness of schedule, once you got used to that time being your own again, I think you're right, Kelly. It's much easier to listen to a sermon at any time, a podcast, find something on YouTube or on the television. We have 24/7 channels that play sermons, from different
Mhm.
denominations, different uh, pastors preach all from for different weeks. Even you can search back for some of the more popular ones. Mm. They have tele-evangelists, of course, that are out there every
Mhm.
Sunday. But
Mhm.
the internet has really made it unnecessary to actually leave your house to do it.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Um, and I think once you get to the point where, hey, it's okay, there's nothing wrong with attending the service virtually, then the next step is, well, why does it have to be on Sunday? I don't need to play the service live. I can play it on Tuesday night while I'm making dinner, or I can play it on. And I think once you get to the point where you're doing something else while you're watching the service,
Mhm.
then it becomes more of a background, and it's even easier to forget about it.
Isn't that like the American way? We're always doing two things at once, or we
Mhm.
feel like we'll even be busy as anything in the middle of a project and still feel unproductive because we're not doing something else at the same time. Like, that's insane, and it's like it's part of the whole culture we built here in America under capitalism, that it's like go 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 all the time. Like,
Mhm.
you have to be producing something all the time. It's frustrating, but I think you're right. It's the convenient. And then if it is more convenient to stay home, um, I'm wondering if you're starting to think about stuff. You got more time now. You're switching around on the channels, looking at different. Um, different types of sermon, different churches, you know.
Well,
I wonder.
not just that, but I think it also gets people to thinking about what is really essential about religion.
Hmm.
And, if it's not essential that we actually physically go to church, does it really make sense for a God to be concerned about what I'm thinking? I mean, why is it important what I believe?
True, true. And that leads me to, isn't it more important in my actions, in my everyday
Mhm,
actions to other people right here, right next to me? And
mhm.
does it matter whether I be atheist or Pentecostal when I'm doing the right thing? And I have that question with a lot of people, especially with the theists who will say that, you couldn't possibly have the same standards that I do because you don't believe in, which is very frustrating for me because I try to do right by everybody. And I don't think that has anything to do with it. But for some, and I'm not saying all, I'm not saying everybody that believes or in whatever you believe feels that way. But it's been my experience, if when they find out that I don't believe, I may get those kind of questions about my morals and my ethics, which is like quite kind of insulting, actually. That
Yeah,
just, yeah, just
yeah,
because I don't believe in a higher being, why does that make me immoral or
exactly,
unethical?
exactly.
It,
Which kind of ties in with a comment that I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly, Jin Shu made that I think is hilarious. Would a
this one.
sermon and sodomy be considered a poor combination? Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
just turn on that sermon while we're having sex.
Well, it does give the freedom that, because here's been my experience that many from the LGBTQ community believe. A lot of my
Oh yeah.
friends do,
Hmm.
and they're not atheists, and they also feel segregated against and pushed upon in organized religion. But it gives them the
Hmm.
freedom to practice and say that they believe when it's outside of a more organized religion. Because they do, in some religions, they're actually persecuted against for it. And it gives them
Hmm.
the freedom to listen to the sermons and to feel more a part of something and encouraged in their own belief, which you would want. If you're going to believe, you want to feel comfort in it and not persecution, of any way.
I don't know if this is a factor in any way because I don't know, this has been going on for centuries, and I don't know the trends as to whether it's getting worse or not. But all the infighting between the different Christian groups, um,
This,
you know, yeah, there's so many Christian groups that say that other Christian groups aren't real Christians. And those are, for me, the most fun arguments to get into on Twitter when people are arguing over what is a real Christian and what is a fake Christian.
like real and fake Christian, like that's actually quite funny. I
Hmm.
mean, to me, that's hysterical. Because I find a lot that those saying that they're Christian are behaving in what I would consider the most unchristian manners I've ever seen.
Hmm.
It, with severe judgment, with ridicule, with punishment, um, mm, uh, not caring about the poor, not caring about the individual, not caring about the situation that's going on, just more in being right. It is a terribly, in my opinion, unchristian manner, which it's hysterical to me because here they are thinking they're holier than everybody else. They're just acting horribly towards their fellow man on a
Hmm.
regular basis just
Hmm.
because, not only because, like, and even people that actually believe, like you said, they believe in God. So how, you've got that in common, and then you're going to judge them by how much you believe in God, how
Hmm.
you believe in God, which way you believe in God, like, it's
What
absolutely ridiculous.
one of my more popular videos that I made recently, the title was "The Number One Enemy of Christians is Other Christians."
Mhm.
And the pastor in that video says straight out, "My number one enemy is Calvinists, and I will kick them I can't remember what he says, every day or every way I can or every opportunity I can, something
Uh-huh.
along those lines. You know, the guy absolutely hates Calvinists. And what happened to we are brothers and sisters in Christ? You know, he who loves not his brother loves not God. You know, somehow they seem
Absolutely.
to forget the portions of the Bible that they don't like.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, I just want to get a couple of these up here. Art Love says also people saw they can find their own communities more organically outside of the church. True. Absolutely. That's a big part of it also.
Now, actually,
Purple.
go back to that comment a minute because that was a big point of one of the articles that you
Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
uh, for the show was
Mm-hmm.
saying that one of the issues with the secularizing of America is we are finding it more difficult to find community, and
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of the people who have left the church and do not recognize any god, and even some that recognize a god but it's more of a spiritual thing, not any particular god, they are having a hard time finding a sense of belonging and finding a sense of community, and they are saying that yeah, their problem is that they're lonely. And
Mm-hmm.
I am not a very social person.
Mm-hmm.
The church was pretty much my only community before I left the church. And when I left the church, I did join a free thinking group. And when my husband would go to church on Sunday, I would go to my free thinking group. But that only lasted for about 5 months before the pandemic started.
Mm-hmm.
And since the pandemic started, you know, my social life has been limited to online. You know, this is it. This community is my entire social life now.
You know what? I am the same. During the pandemic, any outside social groups that I become be replaced with the social groups that I had online. Whether
Mhm.
it started with an online book club of all things. Those
Mhm.
of you that know me, you could see that, right? It started with a book club, and then it started with reading online to the blind or the elderly that couldn't read or get to the library. Just a group that did that, and then it evolved into more and more and more on YouTube and around. But yeah, this is it. Most of my interactions socially are happening this way, and I think I don't even feel weird about it. I don't know about you, Kelly, but it doesn't feel foreign. It doesn't feel strange. It feels almost kind of natural in a way, which in the beginning kind of unnerved me
Mm.
because I was like not looking to get out. When the pandemic was lifted, I did not rush out the doors. Okay.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
now there were health concerns that I had, but not enough that it would keep me from getting back out there if I was so interested in just hanging out with a whole bunch of other people again.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was a little unnerving. But
For me, it's a foreign concept and it's something I need to learn. And it's kind of weird at age 61, learning for the first time how to form relationships with people. But I
yeah.
really haven't done it because my relationships were built in from the church. And even then, all of them were very superficial relationships. And that was one of my biggest frustrations as a believer is
Hmm.
that I would try to have deeper relationships with people. And I invited people to my house for dinner all the time, and I never got invitations back.
Hmm.
And I don't know that what it is. I don't know how to relationship. I don't know. I'm not very good at socializing.
And yet you're so great at communicating, so that like to me that's like I can see where you would find common ground with someone right away.
Mhm.
um and be able to develop like that. I guess it's in recognizing what is an actual relationship anymore. I think that's where it is.
I
You know what I mean?
think a big part of it might be that my social positions started evolving a decade before I deconverted.
Mm-hmm.
I was accepting of the LGBTQ community a
Mm-hmm.
decade before I deconverted. Um, and I think a lot of people in my church saw me as being too liberal.
Yeah, so they started like looking at you as if you were a little different because you
Hmm.
don't believe the same as
Hmm.
that. Yeah, so you started to actually just get more comfortable being with yourself and your own beliefs at that point. I could see that,
Yeah.
you know. Um, yeah, I'm
And
the
you
only atheist in my family, a big
mm,
family.
mm.
So I kind of can relate to that in a way. You kind of hold your own belief to yourself and you just get comfortable knowing what you believe. You're not really pushing it on anybody, but you
Mhm.
know you don't actually fit in with that group anymore. Like, it's big. Yeah.
You know who I credit more than anyone else with the evolution of my political views and my views on social justice?
Hmm.
Jordan Klepper.
Really?
Do you know who that is?
No, I thought you know what? I got scared when you said Jordan because I thought you were going to say the P word. And I was like, What? But
Oh,
no,
oh, no,
I
no,
do
no,
not
no.
actually
No, no,
know
no, no,
who
no.
Jordan, do not
Jordan
know who is.
Jordan
No.
Klepper is a comedian, and
Okay.
he was a regular on The Daily Show. And then
Oh,
he got his own show, which was called The Opposition. And I
okay.
loved his show, The Opposition. And I
I
got a
know who
lot of my social ideas from
hmm
The Opposition. And to me, I find comedy to be far more educational than anything else because you get the message, but you have fun while you do it.
exactly. And that kind of opens people up to actually hearing it. I use that a
Mhm,
lot. I think of most of everybody in the chat who knows me, and all of you do. All of you have interacted with me in some way. You know, I will use humor to get that point in to open you up to like make it more palpable to the
mhm,
masses. Because I'm not trying to I'm not trying to hit people over the head with ideas and notions, but have like real conversations and opening them up that way, a little bit of humor here and there. I mean, even during Roe versus Wade, I used peanut butter as making a law about peanut butter to prove my point, just to show you how crazy I'll get about it. But it did actually open it up.
mhm,
Everybody kind of understood exactly what I meant. They had a good laugh, but they got the point. Like they got it. They got exactly the ridiculousness of it. The point I was trying to make about, it's impossible to legislate 100% everyone's opinion about anything,
mhm.
and that needs because it's a tough conversation. I'd love to have another stream with you about that one if you ever do, based because you have so much more legal knowledge on it than I do. I've been researching on the states and all, but it's a lot. It's so much. Yeah. But,
Another topic that we might want to do another day,
hmm
how to build a library. I built a library
we
from scratch.
You see, and you built an actual physical library from scratch, and
Mhm,
I actually think of my library as a concept. Like,
mhm.
so that would be a good stream because I come at it as a thinking concept, the library, where all of like when you picture a library, all those books, all that knowledge, all that opinion, all those words. Let's just say all those words coming from every type of angle you could possibly think of on a subject. And that's what I think about when I think about the library, which is why I named the chats like that. But you fascinate me that you actually built one, physically built a library. Well, yeah, I'm going to bring you back and we're going to talk just about that. And you're going to tell me exactly how you did that. But on
Okay.
this, I want to pull up a couple more comments before
Yeah,
they get
okay.
too far off. First of all, Purple said that she thinks living through the pandemic also make a lot of people question their notions on an all-loving God. Yes, that's what we were speaking on earlier when you probably typed that. So I'm sorry I'm behind in the chat, but agreed, because it does give you that doubt if you have to actually be in that building and pay that money to actually
Well,
participate.
especially since the pandemic hit the faith communities harder
Hmm.
than the non-faith communities. And it
Right.
was because of that socialization and that, what's the word I'm looking for? People being together aspect.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Community,
Uh,
the
Yeah,
community aspect,
community,
yeah.
the community aspect of the whole thing. Absolutely. No, I totally agree. And then Ring, they said, which is probably bad news for Pentecostals because of how those services are designed to get people present in an emotional frenzy. And we were speaking
Mm,
at that time about people not going to the actual church anymore. And you're
mhm,
right. Some religions will suffer much more
More
greater
than others, yeah.
more than others based on this because of it. Especially those, like that is the whole field, the ones that are playing the music and getting you going, and it's all, a communal experience like that they're basing a lot of the on that, and then using that to actually get the doctrine in there. Yeah, they
Yeah,
definitely
I
that.
hadn't thought about that, but on the other hand, I can see where you could do that alone because I went to a Pentecostal church for a very short period of time when I was in my teens, when I was my late teens, early adulthood, when I not too long after I converted.
Hmm.
And they would teach you to pray in tongues even when you were by yourself. So
Right.
you can get into that emotional state on your own, and you can do it, watching a
Mhm.
service, but being alone while you do it. So it can be done. But Ring is absolutely right that it doesn't have the same effect as being in person.
Mhm.
I hadn't thought about that aspect.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's when I looked at it, it looked like such a small topic, and it just gets bigger and bigger the more I look at it. The more I researched all the numbers, the more I started pulling up the articles, which some of them were all about statistics, and others were just about, like Kelly and I are doing here, just talking about why they think it's changing in the culture, and how just the culture of America alone not being addressed in formalized religion is part of the big problem. Not addressing the big issues and letting people know how to deal with them is become a bigger thing. It's like kind of like just go with what we say and don't think outside the box.
I think we need to study some other more
Mhm.
secular countries
Mhm.
because the statistics are quite clear that life is better in secular countries, that they
Mhm.
have a higher standard of living, they're generally more educated, they generally, the people are happier. And one article that you had in there that I really disagreed with was the one from I think it was the Washington Post, on how he was lamenting the loss of religion and saying that people are going to be lonely, we're not going to know how to relate to each other, and I think we need to study how do other secular countries do it
Mm.
because they are
I
not experiencing that.
No, and I have a that makes total sense to me, and I would love to have another conversation on that too. But basically, I think when you take that, when it becomes more secular, um, you're taking that pressure on that you're taking that vehicle away. And I think just as humans, we are always looking. I know I'm going to put my rose-colored glasses on, and I get bashed a little bit, but we are always looking to how we contribute to our community around us. What good are we doing? I
Hmm.
am a believer in the greater good, so that expands it out from this smaller area that we do it to our whole country. Okay, which is really what I would like to get back to and advocate to. Back when I hear the stories of back in the 50s and the 60s, the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, when I hear my relatives talk about what they did, they always had something besides their job, but it was community based. They were volunteer firemen, policemen. They were like working on all kinds of just volunteer situations, okay? Um
Hmm.
contributing to the community around them. They were volunteering at the hospitals. They were like park services where volunteerism and giving back major part of the community, and you felt like you were doing something for everybody. These countries that are more secular also have better healthcare, better standards of living, better everything, because they're almost as like their whole country is their church, so to speak. Mm. It's
Well,
not
one of the
just
things,
your
yeah,
backyard. Mm.
healthcare is a huge demarcation. Um,
Mm.
I don't remember if it was in one of the articles that you sent. I don't think it was. I think it was in something else that I saw on Twitter that showed that the life expectancy of Americans is declining,
Mhm.
and we're the only developed country that is.
Mhm.
And I think it's because fewer and fewer people have access to health care.
It
And
is.
we've got to get socialized medicine. And I realize that people don't want to do it because it's going to be expensive to start, but the longer we wait, the worse it gets.
Yeah, and I have a big opinion on that too. If they wait, like when they talk about socialized medicine, people say, "Oh, you're from America. You have the best access to healthcare out there. You can get anything you want." No,
I
only if I'm
can.
direly sick. There are laws that say I can walk into a hospital if I'm about to drop dead, and they will keep me alive. But the
Hmm.
minute I walk back out, I'm on my own. Okay.
Hmm.
They won't prejudice against me for whether I have insurance or anything like that. But it's got to be a life or death situation. So that part is true. Yes. And based on the type of medicine that is practiced in America and the level of making it capitalist, yes, don't even argue with me there. Yes, medicine in America is capitalized. It's all about the money. So yes, the technology's there, the doctors, the experts, everything's there. Can I afford it? Can I get to it? Hell no, on a routine basis. Because unless we socialize medicine to make routine keeping people healthy the issue, instead of just, put a band-aid on it when it goes wrong, it's never going to change. And it would be a lot cheaper in the long run to approach it in that manner, in prevention, just like anything, prevent the problem instead of trying to band-aid the damn problem. So it will cost a lot of money. You're right, Kelly, up front, because we've got to pay for people who aren't sick to keep them healthy. Okay. And that's, I would rather my taxes go to that than to, so let me just be mean and say to a Senate that won't pass a bill or put anything on the floor to those salaries, to any of
Hmm.
that. I would rather pay for my neighbor to go get a breast exam or get a health checkup or a dental exam. I would. I really would, because I think that that's more contributory. It's more in the greater good. It's more in getting things done, because what we are paying for now isn't really getting anything done anywhere.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I know our friend Bearded's going to come on me with the healthcare. I knew it as soon as we started talking about it. Here we go. Big pharma has way more power in the States as well. You're absolutely right. Where people are given drugs based on sales rather than efficacy, there's an issue. Yes, and we did what we could, right, Kelly? You remember, but there was some legislation passed about lobbyists and all of this, and what was actually acceptable or not. And they actually started looking at it. We had all kind of committees. We had everything done. And then certain parties, once they got in there, just took it all away. Just got rid of all of it, and it's back again that way. That unfortunately, it's real hard to balance. Don't you agree, Kelly? It's really hard to balance in a capitalist country, to
Yeah,
tell them they
there's actually
can't be
another
doing it.
level to it that a lot of people don't know about that my daughter told me about. I have a daughter that's a
Mhm.
doctor.
Oh
And
yes.
when she first got into medical practice, one of the things that well, I take it back. I saw an article about it in the paper and I showed it to her and I said, "Is this true?" And she said, "Yes, and it is a serious problem with our healthcare."
Hmm.
And that is our healthcare is more patient pushed than you realize.
Hmm.
Those surveys that you take that ask how was your healthcare experience, those are really important because
Hmm.
doctors that don't get good reviews, it affects how much money they can make, where they can work. Those surveys go. I don't remember where she said those surveys go. I forget. But they are really important, and doctors get pushed out of their positions if they don't get good enough
Hmm.
rankings from their
They do.
patients.
And that is all coming from insurance companies in big pharma. Those are the two industries here in America making a lot. They are very profitable. They're geared towards profits. And I don't, I can't necessarily say as an American that that shouldn't happen. They should be allowed to make some money. Well, how much? Like, how much is like what I want to ask. And
Well, and
Lucas, right?
one
He's
of the
correct.
reasons that doctors need to make a lot of money is because they have to go into debt so much just
Hmm.
to get through medical school.
They do, because the education system itself is crazy right
Right.
there.
Mhm.
You can't even afford without going into debt for a good 20 years to actually get a high grade education in our country. Even though it's available to us, it is actually priced out of reach, like many things these days. The gap between affordable and on is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Don't you agree? Things are just being priced right out of our reach for the average American. Bearded is correcting us that free healthcare is not a socialistic idea. That's correct. And thank you for reminding us when I say that. But here in America, everybody automatically thinks that we're going to become socialists if we try to give anything away for free.
Right, right.
If we try to take care of our own people, that would be like the worst thing ever. We're going to become Russia or something. I don't know. It's like ingrained in us like some kind of crazy fear, even though it's not that way. And I know that. I know that.
And that
But
is one way in which I am extremely pleased with the upcoming generation. The I guess they're the Gen Z people.
mm-hmm,
Is I lived through the Cold War, and the word communist was a dirty word, and
mm-hmm,
so my generation is still very afraid of anything that's communist, and we won't. My generation won't support anything that's communist.
mm-hmm,
And I'm really proud of the upcoming generation of young adults that aren't buying into that kind of
mm-hmm,
bullshit. And
mm-hmm,
that takes us right back to the religion thing.
mm-hmm.
They are seeing through the bullshit of the religion, and they're not buying that either. And it makes me really comfortable in knowing that at my okay, I do not live in a family with people who are known for longevity. I recognize that I probably have another 20 years on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I am very comfortable knowing that we've passed the baton to the next generation, and I think they're going to do far better than we did.
If they keep going with, they keep asking the questions, looking for the compromise. Yes, I do see and feel comfortable in the trend to just say, no, just because it's not what I believe doesn't mean it's not right. And isn't there a middle road here that's good for everybody? And I see more and more and more of that in. Um, I'm I'm really pleased about it. I'm hoping it happens. I see more actual change before I go. The recent SCOTUS stuff though does have me a little scared though, Kelly.
Oh
They're
yeah.
gonna have
Oh yeah.
to
There's
fight.
no question about that. Yeah.
But the outcry of what happened gives me hope because
Mhm.
get anyone involved in politics here in America is a hard thing because it's like it's just a let's not talk about it. The divide is so great that you don't want to fight. You'll be arguing with your best friend, your parents, your teachers, your everybody in your circle. Your employers, your employees, everybody, your co-workers. Everybody's gonna be arguing with everybody whenever it comes up. So it does get hard. But Jin had a good point. Access to healthcare we have in America, but affordability is what we need. This is true. We are being priced out of reach, and that's education also. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can go with that.
I think that what we are seeing with SCOTUS is a huge fear on the part of the white evangelicals that they are
Hmm.
losing their power, and they are.
Well,
There's no
statistically,
question
we
that they
are.
are.
We
And these
absolutely are.
statistics that
Hmm.
we're talking about with, people losing their faith and fewer people having
Hmm.
faith is part of that.
Hmm.
And I think, the SCOTUS rulings that we're seeing is a desperate attempt by the white evangelicals to try to hang
Hmm.
on to what they have left in the way of power. And
Hmm.
I think it's just going to be a matter of time before I think it's all going to be self-correcting, but unfortunately, it's going to take a decade or two to get there.
Yeah, and it's in a painful decade,
Yeah, it
unfortunately,
is. It
because
is.
we've actually gone back so many years in a
Mhm.
week that I can't even imagine like all of that good work. But you know,
What's what's gonna happen is the same thing that happened in the 50s and 60s. We're
mhm,
going to see tens of thousands of women dying. And
right,
when the
because
statistics start coming out about how many women are dying as a result of the abortion ruling,
mhm,
we're
mhm,
we're gonna finally turn it back again.
exactly. That's the unfortunate process. That they're not just trying to go against a procedure, where they're going to be going against like women's healthcare in general,
Hmm.
because those facilities aren't going to be able to operate anymore, and they provided much more than that.
Right.
Um, so much more. Just regular healthcare, breast exams, cancer screenings, prenatal care. They forget that the poor and the young women who don't have regular access are using it for that. Okay, using it for contraceptive management, using it for general health needs. And it's gonna be, we spoke on that before, just astronomical to change. And it's not. Here's the thing: all of the statistics show, and I don't know why they keep ignoring these, that banning abortion does not stop abortion.
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
it just makes it harder and illegal and dangerous. It just kills.
Exactly.
It hurts people. All
Right.
it does is hurt. It's not going to stop it. What stops it is prevention and education. And they
Hmm.
won't let us do that. They won't let us do that because that's against their religion doctrine. But then again, you can't do anything about the byproduct of what it just doesn't make any sense. It's like a vicious wheel that goes round and round. Um, if we
Well,
could
there's
just
a lot
educate.
more factors than just that. That's a big part of the issue is that abortion is an extremely complex problem.
Hmm.
And factors that are involved are economic factors, domestic violence factors.
Hmm.
And until you can address all of the underlying factors, you can't effectively ban abortion.
Yeah. No, it's going to be. I don't think they got their own states in some of them. Their own state supreme courts are going against them on their state constitutions, let alone the federal constitution. But uh, it's going to be a rough road
Hmm.
for them,
It is.
because whether we want to believe it or not, it is the minority opinion that's trying to push this. 70% of Americans, whether they have religious belief or not, in abortion, do not think it's right to deny a woman's right to choose. Okay,
Hmm.
70% of Americans want women to be able to choose. That's a big number, okay?
Hmm.
That means that the minority is pushing the agenda here, and that's scary for me
Hmm.
because I didn't know the Supreme Court was a minority ruling. I thought they were supposed to be unbiased. And this is scary what's going on because it doesn't,
I'm
I
more
don't want to,
afraid of what's going on with voting rights.
yeah, because they're also doing legislation on that.
Hmm.
Eh, that's scary. Yeah, that's going to
And
take away.
that's not going to affect me, but I think that's going to be really scary for colored people.
I think so because of just eliminating where they can have access to, how they
Hmm.
can, documents that are necessary. It's going to be, and the poor, and the
Although
young.
one thing that's really interesting,
Hmm.
it was only last year that Alabama made it legal for atheists to vote.
What?
A lot of people don't realize this because it wasn't technically illegal for atheists to vote, but in order to vote in Alabama, you had to fill out a voter registration card. And at the end of it was an oath that you had to sign that ended, "So help me God." And if you
Oh,
crossed off the words, "So help me God," your voter registration was tossed to the trash and you could not register to vote. And there was someone that sued the state of Alabama for the right to vote without having to vow to God that he wouldn't
wow!
violate those rules.
I did
And
not know that. That is
yeah,
that.
that
Wow!
went that that okay, he won in a lower court and then the state appeal or no, I take it back. He lost in the lower court, but the state dropped it because they knew that there was no way in hell they were going to win that one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so they just dropped it and said, okay, if you want to cross off the words so help me God,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. You can still vote.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, atheists were not allowed to vote in this state until
I
just
can't.
last year.
Wow! That's one of those laws that you hope they weren't really prosecuting anybody for.
No, they
But
weren't.
because to be the voice of the people, the voting process needs people to be there doing it. They seem to be doing everything they can to make it impossible.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's
that's scary. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
something that I've watched on the, January 6th hearings.
Mm-hmm.
When they administer the oath to each of the witnesses, they've been putting "So help me God" at the end of it, and I was thinking, if I was a witness, I would need to slip someone, write a note and say, "Please slip this to the chairman that I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to swear to God."
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is a complete undermining of the oath to tack
Mm-hmm.
on that I swear to an imaginary being.
And yet it's so ingrained in everything that we do. It was on our money. It is on all our as you said, legislative procedures. It's there. It's everywhere. And yet, way back when they say we had a separation of church and state, it really wasn't the total separation. It was to protect church from having to choose which church was
Mhm.
involved. It really wasn't to separate anything because it was so ingrained in the culture. There was just a lot of fighting amongst different churches at the time when we first started to organize. It was 13 states that all had different religious organizations as far as the church that they followed, and they didn't want to be told which one would outrank the other. They wanted a free voice amongst all
Now,
13 of
I
them.
I
Hmm.
disagree with you there.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think the founding fathers really cared two hoots about
Hmm.
religion. Most of them, some
No.
of them were very religious, but most of
Hmm.
them were not.
Hmm.
And most of them saw religion as being something for the peasant class.
They
And
did.
that, yeah, and we don't need that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think that there was always intended to be a separation of church and state to the
Yeah.
extent that the church would have no involvement of the government, that was supposed to be something completely separate, and that church was something for the masses and government was for the elite.
It was, and unfortunately, they didn't word it that way. They made it very like what I'm saying is what I think happened is actually some of the arguments come through for what Jefferson actually put in there in the original, before they added the amendments later, which I think you're probably more versed in it with your with all of your studies. They then had the amendments later, all these conversations later where they expanded on it. And you're right, Jefferson didn't want it in there at all. Okay, but he was dealing with everybody, with the everybody representing all the 13, and how to
Right.
come across that and make sure that it wasn't going to be an undue influence. But at the same time, trying not to say, you can't have any say at all. So the wording was very clever if you go back to the original, but that's a whole nother stream that we can do, which I would be happy to do with you because you do have some great knowledge on it. It would be good. Well, the opinions back and forth about what that original clause actually says are all over the place.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, because you got to remember we came over, we came over wanting to practice our religious freedom. Yes.
Now that also is another myth,
Yeah.
because some people
Okay.
did, but not
Mm-hmm.
everybody. In fact, the
Mm-hmm.
Puritans and Boston Colony was founded to be a Puritan colony. And if
Mm-hmm.
you were not a Puritan, you were not allowed to live in the Boston Colony.
That's
Um,
terrible.
they
Mm-hmm.
they anyone who didn't believe their religion was banished. And that's why Anne Hutchison was banished. And
Mm-hmm.
she was banished for teaching the Bible to men.
Mm-hmm.
Women should only be allowed to teach to women, and men showed up for her Bible studies, and she was banished from the colony.
Mm-hmm.
It was called the Great Puritan Experiment, and the intent was never to have religious freedom, but rather
Right.
that they wanted to have their own community where you had to be a Puritan to live there, and they thought that they could make a form of a heaven on earth, and that
Mm-hmm.
if they could keep everyone in the community pure and all in agreement with this one religious idea, that they could make a
Mm-hmm.
better society. And it didn't work. It fell
Yeah.
apart in one generation because
Right.
people, just like what we're experiencing today, the next generation didn't always agree with the theology of their parents, and the parents ended up with the choice of banishing their own children,
Mm-hmm.
or changing the rules of the community, and they ended up changing the rules of the community.
Mm-hmm. And ring. informs us that the fun fact, the only colony started by people fleeing or religious persecution was Rhode Island, and it was started by the Quakers fleeing Massachusetts. But now that we're talking about that, can you see why he worded it the way he worded it? If all of that was going on, if you had Puritans trying to say, hey, you got to do it this way, and you had other people that didn't want to do it that way, you could see why Jefferson worded it the way he did, to try to allow that they could have the
Right.
freedom to practice their religion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But
Mm-hmm.
and tried to keep it separate from state, but it wasn't firm enough, and it's caused quite a problem for us, guys, all along, because it really didn't define it completely. And we go back and forth because, like just recently, SCOTUS has said that prayer could be mentioned in church again, and that the individual
You mean in
employees
school?
in school, right? Not in church. Yeah, I said church. I mean school, in the education system. Absolutely, thank you. Um, yeah, definitely that they could start doing that again, and it's been out of there for a while, because I think it's a slippery slope, because as we had another conversation about this on Answering Reasons. How do you say which prayer is allowed, which religion is allowed? There are so many different religions in America. If you allow it in institutions this way, you're going to be persecuting and oppressing somebody somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is why it just, like, we're not trying to say, believing in God is wrong. We're just trying to say you can't be that specific and allow one if you're not going to allow all. And that is absolutely impossible to put it all in there.
I know.
What,
I would absolutely love to see a Satan worshiping football coach
yeah.
gather his team and yell, "Hail Satan!" And I could just see the whole football team going,
Well, you
"Hail
know how that
Satan!"
happens. You know how that happens, Kelly. You said it. It's going to happen. We're going to see it. There'll be a YouTube video. You put it out there. Somebody going to pick up on it and say, that's a
Oh,
good
I
one.
would love to
Yeah,
see
there
it.
you go. No.
I would almost go volunteer to be a football coach just so I could go out on the
Mhm.
50-yard line and yell and gather the team and yell, "Hail Satan!"
I know. And that kind of not exactly, but it kind of leads me to one of my other points that before we wrap up in a little bit, but that could it be, with everyone looking at, being away from organized religion right now as far as the churches and all, but noticing more of the extremists that are out there about it. I mean, we've got preachers out there claiming he finds witches and burning books and really going backwards, like way backwards, and just extremism on both sides,
I think
making
that's just a
them
cry for
withdraw.
publicity.
Oh,
I think that's nothing more than just trying
hmm
to seek attention.
hmm
Yeah, Greg Locke doesn't care about the Bible and doesn't care about religion. He just cares
no,
about attention.
of course. But do you think seeing more of these is having an effect on those that are pulling away a little bit, just taking a step back and trying to figure out where they fit in? Because I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
that
think.
could be. That
Yeah.
could be. He may be driving more people away from the church than he realizes. He
hmm
thinks he's got them flocking to him, but I think most of the people that are watching him are only watching to see how crazy he gets. They don't really agree with him.
I'm not laughing at you. Bearded is doing everything he can to derail my chat, and I don't do that to you, love. When I come to your stream, I don't know. I'm not one of them. But I know it's good fun. How many? Oh, wait, could we turn cows into war machines, equip them with auto-targeting miniguns and armor? And before that, he wants to know how many chickens they have to send over here to America to overrun it. What do you think?
That
I mean,
reminds me of a
go
guy that
ahead.
I knew decades ago. That okay, my husband was active duty army for the first 13 years of our marriage, and one of his closest friends had the idea that if when we get into a war, we need to put women and children, particularly the elderly, in the front lines. And if our enemy wipes out our women and children, then we say, "Big deal. So you wiped out a bunch of women and children. Who cares? That doesn't prove anything." That was his idea on military tactics.
No, I, that's, oh boy, I get it. All right. What is this? Lone Wolf says that you are correct. Godless Granny is correct. Many of the people like Greg Locke and his ilk are members of the Howard Stern School of Religious Fundamentalism. Wow, that's a name I haven't heard in a while, but you're absolutely right. That extremist that, like, do it all for just to get the attention, to get out there, and to get to get known for it. You know,
Mhm.
yeah. But I do think it's not working in their favor. I really don't. I know I think that this next generation, as you said, is a little more thoughtful, a little more considered. They don't not going to automatically believe something just because a relative does or just because they're told.
Mhm.
Um, I see a trend more to just researching on their own, looking at things. They have more exposure to other cultures too here,
That is one
and
thing that I
yeah,
do credit my generation with,
hmm
is instead of teaching the next generation what to think, we taught them how to think. And that's
yeah.
why they're rejecting our ideas, is they realize they don't work.
Right, because they're thinking on their own, and hopefully
Mhm.
they're thinking, not just thinking about it, they're actually going to look at ways to improve it. And
Mhm.
that's the conversations that I've been seeing happening, and I'm quite inspired by it. I really am. But uh, I just don't have an answer as to why it's falling off, except for that just it's not fitting. I don't believe that formalized religion is fitting in the way we're living day to day here in America anymore.
No, I
And,
think its time has passed.
hmm and especially since they did not do a very good job as accepting the culture of America changing. With rights for the individuals, trying to oppress others is never a good look for any organization. We fight against that as a democracy. How can we allow it in a religion? That's always been a question of mine. Uh, you
Mhm.
know, we would fight if another country was oppressing a whole group of people over any issue. We'd be right there telling them how wrong it is, being all opinionated and in their face, and yet we allow it here in America, under religious beliefs. And then, that to me is unacceptable. And I think that's another angle that maybe the younger generations are looking at, that oppressive nature of it.
Mhm.
Isn't that what when we were younger, Kelly? Remember, that's all it was about: freedom, right? Isn't that it? Freedom to do whatever we wanted, to think whatever we wanted, to be whoever we wanted. It's like, hopefully, that's what we've instilled in the children, mm, to go forward.
I think every generation has said that. It's
Hmm.
just been different issues as to what it was they wanted to be free about. For
Hmm.
for me, it was the sexual revolution and equality of women as I was coming of age.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously the issues have changed considerably.
Yeah, and then it appears Bearded has dropped the snakes with arms argument and joined us in believing that America is literally a paradox, the only country in the world which speaks fervently about the rights of the individual while simultaneously restricting freedom to do anything. You
Hmm.
got it. You nailed it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly what we just said. Yep.
that was an observation that I found really interesting when I went on a missionary journey to Russia.
Hmm.
I we asked our bus driver, the driver of the bus that took us from the airport to our hotel, uh, what he thought about certain things, and he had
Hmm.
been to the United States before, and we asked him, "Don't you find the freedom of the United States far more enjoyable to live in than this oppressive country?" And he said, "No, Russia is more free than America." And we were just absolutely flabbergasted at that statement. We said, "Why?" And he said, "In Russia, if I'm lost, I just stop my car and look at my map, and when I'm ready to go again, I go. In America, if you stop in the middle of the highway, people are going to
Hmm.
get all upset with you." And he says, "In Russia, now this isn't very sanitary, but it's true, they do this. In Russia, if I want to pee, I pee. In
Hmm.
America, I have to go find a bathroom.
Hmm.
Just peeing on the street is not acceptable."
Right.
And I realized he was right. We don't have a lot of laws restricting what we can and cannot do, but we have a lot of social customs that restrict you
Hmm.
from what you can and
Yeah.
cannot do.
Yeah, societal pressure,
Mhm,
overwhelming societal pressure to conform.
mhm.
Yep, in micros and macro situations, right? Like yeah, absolutely. Oh, then I can go with you. That must have been a wonderful experience over there, though. I was
It
like, you had to
was, it
talk
was.
to
We went and, we played games and brought presents
some.
to orphans in some Russian orphanages.
Mm, that's quite you're very, very well traveled. We're gonna have to talk about that sometime. I wanted to bring this up because this was what I was trying to find, and of course they found it for us. Ring, thank you very much. Remember this: the government of the United States of America is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religion from the Treaty of Tripoli in 1797. Thank
Yep,
you.
and it
That
was
is stuff.
Washington that wrote that.
That was Washington who did that after Jefferson's. But these are all the conversations and the amendments and the treaties and things that we're talking about that added to it later that clarified the original statements. But apparently, SCOTUS just was able to ignore all of the amendments and just go back to the original and quote that. It's very frustrating to me. Very, very frustrating. I don't know how they get to do. Yeah. One day we can do a stream on how they get to do that legally, just pick and choose. But I guess that's lawyering, right? I mean, in a way, you
You mean
get
how
to,
they choose which cases they're gonna hear?
yes, how they choose which cases, and then how they choose which precedences and which parts of the Constitution they're actually going to apply to it, and ignore other parts. Because
That
even though
that's
they
based
said,
primarily on the arguments that are before them.
right, so they only look right at the argument, right?
I
Whatever.
would not say that. It's not exclusive.
Mm,
But in addition to the arguments, there's also amicus curiae briefs, which is friend of the court. And anytime there is a Supreme Court decision, anyone that thinks that their rights are going to be affected by it is going to hire an attorney and send in
mhm,
an amicus curiae brief. So those get factored in as well.
mhm,
Sometimes, whether if the court wants to look at them. Um,
mhm.
but the arguments that get to the court are pretty thorough. Um,
Yeah.
they pretty much throw everything at the wall that could possibly stick.
Right, so it gives them enough to go back with because they go for every different angle of it.
Hmm.
Well, yep. Well, it did take quite a while for this to actually happen, but hopefully it doesn't take as long for some change, even if it's just done at the state level to occur about it. I don't think
Hmm.
it's going unnoticed, which is nice, for a change, because many of these things go unnoticed. And when's the last time that you heard all of the SCOTUS opinions of the week come out and everybody had something to say about every single one of them? I mean, there was uprising about
Yeah,
all of them. So
yeah.
people know and people are interacting about it and people want something done. So it's not like go quietly into the night with these rulings at all, which is
Hmm.
encouraged that part. But
I just so lament that LGB that
yeah,
um, I'm sorry, RBG, Ruth Bader
right.
Ginsburg was not able to hang on
Mm-hmm.
just a couple more months. And obviously, I don't blame her. It wasn't her fault
Yeah,
she
it's
died,
not her fault. I mean, with everything
but
she was doing,
gosh, if she just could have hung on a couple more months, it would have made all the difference in the world.
Mhm. Yes, and I know that that's a big bone of contention in that party about whether or not she should have stepped down so that they could have had the seat earlier to replace
It
out.
wouldn't have done any good unless she'd have stepped down 4 years earlier.
Yeah, and we needed her
Right,
during
we
those.
needed
She
her
was
during
a
those 4 years.
strong,
Yeah. So, no, I
yeah,
don't blame her at
yeah.
all.
She was a
I
strong
think she
voice
did
and a
everything
strong
she
vote.
could. Yeah.
She absolutely did. So it is unfortunate, and I do agree with your sentiment that the pushback from the extreme right, we'll say, is basically due to them feeling like their voice wasn't getting heard, a last ditch effort
Mhm,
based on their party getting smaller and their control getting more limited.
mhm,
That this is just getting it all out there. It's like throwing everything at the wall, getting it all out there to see what's going to stick and just let us all figure it out. But they're going to get it done. They've
mhm,
been working to get it done, and they're going to try. And now we've got to unravel it. And because no matter how you look at it, it is the minority opinion. and that is, what I hang my hat on, is that the majority will come forward and try to twist that back around again if enough people are working on it, because it is the minority opinion, most of it. it well, back on the religious end of it, do you think that, on a religious basis, do you think that Clarence Thomas's opinions out here on what he wants to tackle next are based on his religious beliefs?
I don't know because I don't know what cases he's considering and wanting to take on.
Well, there was some commentary out there done about statements he made, that he made like a hit list about going over same-sex marriage, LGBTQ
Mm.
rights, all of these things.
I thought that was Alito. I thought that was someone else that had made that list. That was Thomas.
I heard it was Thomas, but who knows? It could be both. They're voting the
Yeah,
same way.
yeah.
It could be
I
both.
know a lot of people who are afraid that interracial marriage is going to be on the list.
Well, I don't think Thomas is going to go for that one,
No, Thomas won't, obviously. But
obviously. Mm.
the rationale that they are using against abortion and against gay marriage is the exact same rationale that was used in order to make interracial marriage legal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty hard to say that we're taking these rights back because this is bad reasoning, but we're
Mm-hmm.
keeping that one because the reasoning was okay on that one.
And it's the same reasoning, and it's
Right.
just
Exactly.
like it's like,
Exactly.
yeah, that just shows bias and should means the whole thing should be overturned. I'm in. I don't know if it's possible, but I would really like somebody to tell me how we can yeet the SCOTUS for bias. Like I really do, just like get rid of the whole level the playing field out again. Because if they're going to be that biased about it, and they're not going to actually use legal argument, because that would prove that they're not using uh, uh sound judgment. If you use the same precedent for one and then turn it upside down for the other, that's bias. That's clear bias, in my opinion. Do you think?
If there was a God and if prayer worked, I would definitely be praying that something would happen to take certain members of the court off, namely
Hmm.
Thomas, Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and,
Right.
just
Mm.
make it so that they can't be on the court anymore. Give them Alzheimer's, I don't care what. Give them
I'm
a
not going to go that far, but I do wish there was a legal thing to hold them to their word, that they couldn't flip flop like that biasly. You know what I
Mhm,
mean? And
mhm,
give us something to fight with, because if they say it's good on this one and then bad on that one, that gives everybody the opportunity to keep going back and forth on it.
mhm.
You- But I don't want them to have Alzheimer's. I want them to get out of here. Can they quit? Like, can they just
Oh,
say,
yeah, yeah.
I have to
That's
go
why
smell
I said
flowers?
anything. I was thinking possibly in possibly like a family emergency that,
Hmm.
maybe they've got a family member that they now need to take care of, and so
Yeah, yeah,
as
or
a
something.
result, they need to resign in order to take care of this family member.
Mhm. I just wanted them to like find something like that they want to do better, like make a whole bunch of money somewhere for some other corporation and get the heck out of this court. Just eat
Mhm.
yourselves right out, please. Help us. But it's a lifetime. We need to change that kind of stuff too. And I know we got off topic here, everyone, and I am sorry, but Kelly has a great opinion on all of these that I definitely wanted to hear about, and I knew it was going to kind of slide over to this somehow, because I can't help myself. But I
Me
really,
either.
I know, right? You get to talking about these things that interest us, and that's what library chats is about. It's like sitting around having a nice drink in front of a fire, or not. It's summer. We know the air conditioning is going. But just being comfortable and just talking about all these things, in
Mhm.
allowing other opinions, and getting more information from someone on a subject. 'Cause I don't mind being wrong about anything. I want information from all places. Um, Bearded has a good one here about the yeet, though. I just that word tickles me when I get to say, yeet the SCOTUS bias by removing executive powers to put people on the panel. They need to be chosen differently, but judiciary and executive should not interact. I get that, and also lifelong commitments. I do agree that we need stability. It should be a long term, but I don't think lifelong is. I think they put it as lifelong because by the time you got to the, to be that high up in the Supreme Court, you've already had a very long career. And I guess they weren't thinking that people were going to be there for many, many, many years, um, because of, based on lifespan and stuff like that. Well, I think
Mhm.
we need terms. I think terms all over need to be changed. What do you think, Kelly?
I do agree with the justices on the Supreme Court being lifetime. And as
Mm-hmm.
much as it's painful to us right now, in the long run, I think that that is the best system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that because it allows them to be free of political influence.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is possible, they could still be listening to outside political influences, but if they have to be continually reelected, if
Mm-hmm.
they have to get, if they're getting reappointed over and over,
Mm-hmm.
whereas where they've got to be thinking, okay, my term is going to be up in 2 years. What am I going to do after this? I need to make decisions that are going to be uh, politically correct for me to be able to step into the next career that I want to get into.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see the court go that direction. And
Right.
that was the whole reason that the Supreme Court was appointed for lifetime, is that they
Right.
are supposed to be free of any kind of political influence, and that even if they made a ton of representations at the time that they were appointed, once they are appointed, they don't have to hold to any of those. They are
Mm-hmm.
completely free to decide however they think
And
is
that's
best for the
unfair.
country.
And that's how we got here, it's because they are free to do that, and they are going to be free to do it for their lifetime appointment. Um, Ring, they say all those policies are designed to produce religious right voters, and he's talking about what SCOTUS put out. I believe that's what we were talking about at that time. And I agree with you. It is throwing it all, it is trying to get them all like, we support you, come on, like, this is our time, come forward, this is what we're doing, vote us all, vote for your party. This is what we support. It was a loud statement, a scary one for me, but a very loud statement. I agree with that.
It worked exactly the opposite way in the 70s.
It did.
We saw a huge increase in the number of personal freedoms and personal rights from the court in the 70s, because the court we had then was the most liberal Supreme Court we've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And, people were saying the exact same thing, but in the opposite direction back then.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It was like it was the opposite, but now it's like it's almost like it's okay to do this when we fought so hard for it not to be so rigid and so judgmental on everything. Like we're fighting against it. Aaron says that us talking about this is not off topic because a lot of churches are attempting to invade and absorb political entities.
Hmm.
Yes, it
Hmm.
is the environment we're in, so it's going to go there naturally. Every time we talk about atheism, religion, it's just going to go right into politics for me. I think every stream I've done in the last couple of months is been based on it.
What
Absolutely.
I find the scariest is Lauren Boebert.
Oh yeah.
Representative Boebert's rant that she went on at, I forget which church,
Mm-hmm.
saying the government should not be directing, that the church needs to be directing the government. I mean, she
Mm-hmm.
said this outright, and she
She
is
did.
a member of the government, and she wants a theocracy. And
Mm-hmm.
that I find really
Mm-hmm.
scary.
Right. And that I believe we can fight with the Constitution, can't we?
Oh,
Like
yeah,
that's what
we
everybody
can.
putting their constitutional law minds on. And that cannot happen. That is going to be oppressing so many people if that happens. And
The pro- the
yeah.
problem is that it can happen within the bounds of the Constitution. And here's a really good example. My governor isn't even hiding the fact that she wants a theocracy.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever she passes legislation or writes legislation, there is no God language in the legislation. And the best example is the anti-trans legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Our state is one of the ones that has banned health care for transgender youth.
Mm-hmm.
And the governor, after she signed this into law, she said, the good Lord said, if you're a girl, you're a girl, and if you're a boy, you're a boy. It's
Really? They said that?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, she said that flat out.
No, she did, but I don't believe the good Lord did.
Well,
Did he?
no, you're right, he didn't. But
Yeah.
anyway, I mean, the good Lord, if any good Lord exists, has never said anything. But
Mm-mm.
anyway, she was not at all secretive that this is her religious view. But if you go through
Mhm.
the legislation, there is nothing in the legislation that ties it to religion, and because of that, it's legal.
No, I get no, absolutely, and it's scary. I mean, politically and legally, that's just very scary to me. Of to what the direction we're going to be going state by state, and I think it goes right along with the SCOTUS rulings, like state by state. It's going to be quite a mess. I don't see our divide in our country getting any smaller over the next 10 years. Absolutely. Mm. So Jinzu says, how about they actually have a conscience and admit they lied during their admittance questioning? Yes, because I do believe several of them did have some version of the statement which said they believed that Roe versus Wade was settled law.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
believe one of them actually used the term settled law, in that it was not open for discussion, that it's been proved, and there wasn't anything to go back to. And yet those same justices ruled against it um, easily. Mm. And I don't know if there's anything that can be done about that, because people's opinions change. They're going to say that they looked at legal precedent and they looked at everything and with newer eyes, or they heard arguments that persuaded them. And unfortunately, well, fortunately, because that's how we want it to be, they have the right to do that. Um,
Mhm.
Based on their legal expertise and all. I was just hoping that they were doing it with their legal expertise and uh, their legal minds, instead of their bias in their agenda, which it does seem a little political. And Bearded's right. As long as that SCOTUS is coming off that political, it's going to be a hot mess. It
Mhm.
definitely, because in my lifetime, it didn't occur to me that they were. And maybe that's naive, but I always looked at it legally. I have great respect for our legal system. I always looked at it as the higher court, and they just looked at it black and white, period. And none of that other stuff came in, that they really held themselves to a higher standard. But it does appear that they're allowing their personal beliefs and their party beliefs to influence them greatly. And I don't know if I'm just thinking that because they didn't do what I expected them to do, or that I wanted them to do. I know that's what they'll accuse us of, but I actually do think that the minority voice is louder here, and there's really not. I don't know. When I read it, I'm not a lawyer, Kelly, so I'll talk about this to you on a later date. But I don't see the legal argument as strong as they do. I really don't.
No, I don't either. I don't
Um,
either.
and I was really disappointed that they made such a big move on such a weak president. It really did. Um, but uh, but maybe for a good reason. Maybe if the states, the ones that are push for equality and push for the right, will make stronger precedent for it, we can go forward. That's what's gonna happen now, I think. But on that, is there anything else on our topic that you would like to add? Because I know I only said I'd keep you a little while, and I don't want to keep you too much longer on this.
No, I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, I think it was a great conversation. I hope you'll come
Mhm.
back. I mean, this is great. I love just speaking as openly like this and letting the conversation go wherever it goes. I never stop it, because I do believe in that fluid, that those are the things that have to get out there, whatever they want to talk about in the chat, and whatever you would like to bring forward. Um, and yes, you're right, Bearded. It's not settled unless it's codified, and that is part of the problem. It was not codified. Yeah, we got
Mhm.
that. Yeah, and because there is the erroneous belief that it was stating that about a woman's right, and which it didn't. They kind of went for the Privacy Act under healthcare thing, like kind of like right to privacy, instead of actually a right to body autonomy, which would be nice, But well, hey, Arcanix, it's nice to see you. Well, we're heading out now. On that, Kelly, I hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much for giving me the time today. And everybody who voted in there for her new stream title. Are you really going to go with Aaron's? Is he
Yes,
the absolute winner?
I'm going with errands.
Okay, that's you, Aaron. Winner, winner, Mr. Reese chicken dinner. You've done it again. It was a good title. And so congratulations on that. And thanks again. I look forward to your stream, Kelly. For everyone, Kelly's Twitter and her channel are listed below in the description, along with many of the articles we were reviewing and talking about. And please check out her content. She's got a wide variety of these topics, always coming from a very well-learned and researched place, and just putting out the topics and getting everybody's input on it. And it's worth a good peruse and a subscription. Hit the button for. Okay. On that,
Thank
I
you
was.
for having me.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Kelly. And thank you, chat, and thank you, moderators. And we'll see you all again soon.
Live your life.
Live your life. I like that.